Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the 12th and final episode of this season. Psyched to be with you, with me, your host, Christopher Leach, aka Chimp195. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be with you once again, bringing you another fantastic guest for what I am sure is going to be some fantastic content for your ears to devour. So I'm very excited. This is going to be fun. Let's dial back, grab a beverage, find yourself a comfy spot. And my very special guest, if you could please just tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi everyone, my name is Elisabeth, but I do think I'm better known online under my handle Arevya, and I'm a disabled and chronically ill content creator from Norway.
I mean, I'm always happy to. I feel like I have a really good plethora of delightful accents on the show. I've had people from like the US, Portugal, now Norway. Like it's an odyssey just for the accents. Totally worth doing.
Yeah,
If
it
not
was
for the great
it was
chats.
funny. I was like some weeks ago, I was at an event called Women in Gaming at lunch, and I met a lady from the UK there. We talked for a long time, and she was all of a sudden going like, "Where are you from?" And I'm just like, "I'm from here," because it was in my hometown. And she was just like, "Yeah, okay, you work here, but where are you from?" And I was just like, "No, I'm from here." And she was just like, "Oh, you don't have the typical Norwegian accent at all. We have normally quite a strong Norwegian accent, but I don't have that one."
I
So she
mean,
was a bit
someone from the
shocked
UK
about
being
that.
slightly racist, not surprised.
Oh, oof.
To Una reverse you there, I frequently get asked what part of Scandinavia I'm from, and I tell people
Yeah.
Liverpool, and they just assume because I've
Well,
got white hair and sort of blue grey
yes.
eyes that I must be
Yes.
from somewhere in Scandinavia.
Yes. You have like the what could we call it? Like your Scandinavia passing. There we go.
Yes,
Yes.
it's one of the if yeah, and I like wearing check shirts as well, so I maybe don't help myself. But
There we go. We have it.
if I start telling people my name's Christensen, I feel like they believe me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me on the show. I appreciate it. I feel like we've been in the same kind of social sphere for a while online.
Yeah.
And then it was during Disability Pride Month that we actually sort of technically collaborated, albeit in
Yeah.
parts. Do you want to tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that as an event and how you came about that?
So yeah, I had actually a friend of mine who did like a Pride event last year where he did like one video a day for Pride to talk about different Pride subjects. And I was just like, that was really cool because like that is a really nice way of like not only celebrating Pride, but also like telling our story with Pride and telling like every good and bad things that has happened to the LGBTQ plus community over the hundreds of years. And I was just like, hey, this is a really, really good idea because the disability community is so broad. Like I have my visions and my like idea of what it is to be disabled, but that is such a narrow scope of what it actually means because like that is just my really limited knowledge and really limited experience. So I was just like, it would be good to actually get other people talking about their experience or something they want to talk about that I most likely can't like fathom or can't understand properly or can't or shouldn't talk about because there are things that other people should talk about because they are the one experiencing it. You don't need to hear it from me, you can hear it from them. So I asked on Twitter, I think we found it, you found it on Twitter, didn't you?
Yes.
I asked out, yeah, like, hi, do I have any friends in the disability community or the chronically ill community that want to join me to just say something? Whatever. It can be like why you like a game. Just like I just want to highlight disabled voices, whatever that means. And I got a bunch of friends. I think we got up to 20 videos. Typical though, disabled. Can't do it every single day. Got burned out really, really quick. But I got up to like 20 different videos talking about a lot of different things about like why they need something or why they like a game or why something is cool. And then I made an intro and outro to it, and I posted it all over social media, and it was really, really fun. It's really, really fun.
I think you make a great point there about like the self-imposed limitations of being a disabled person, right? Because it's, I'm sure you've had this discussion as well, but like when you're the disabled person in the workplace or in the team, you kind of get turned to represent the entirety of disability. It's happened to me,
Oh, yeah.
like, and it's like I cannot answer for everyone.
No, it's like some people sometimes just ask me, like, do you think this is like accessible for people who can't hear or deaf? And I'm just like, well, you have to ask somebody who can't hear or deaf. Or like, of course, I can like to some degree understand it. I do YouTube reviews of games and equipment and stuff like that, so I can like talk about it on like the broader term of what knowledge we do have in the accessibility community. But I can't like say for sure if this helped. Like, if you absolutely want to know if this is for a given disabled person, you have to ask that given disabled person.
And like for listeners' benefit, like a good example of this is like the BBC provide very good guidelines for subtitles around
Yeah.
like how they should be used, and they're of a very good standard, and they were means tested, so they're very like applicable. So if someone were to ask me that, I could be like, well, actually, it doesn't meet the BBC standards because they're good, right?
Mhm.
And like I think it's such a thing to be, even to label oneself as disabled, I think is just, people then just use that as a touchstone and a catch-all.
Yeah. And I can understand it though. Like for me, it's important. I think maybe that's a difference between you and I, is that you can't look at me and say I'm disabled, or tell that I'm disabled. Which, so for me, it has also been a bit like I need to say it so people understand. There is a lot of videos where I talk, especially on YouTube and stuff, where like I just talk about a subject, or like I talked about the Xbox adaptive controller, and people were just like in the comments going like, "You stole resources from actual disabled people," and I'm just like, "Honey, I'm part of the group." But since you can't see it, for me, it's important also to just like, I have to preface with like, I am part of this community, even though you can't necessarily pinpoint it by just looking at me.
And I kind of encounter that to some degree, because I kind of always say that I have a very visible difference with like my very white hair and very pale complexion, right? But as I mentioned, people just assume I'm Scandinavian. So I always say like very visible
Yeah.
difference, but invisible disability a lot of the time. Like people, because like
Yeah.
unless you are walking, and this is a say like blind trope, right? Like unless you're walking around with a dog and a big stick and sunglasses on, people don't assume that you can't see very well. And that's
Yeah.
a spectrum from like absolutely no sight to full vision, and visually impaired is in the middle and often gets forgotten. And even people who are registered blind like myself might have limited vision or can still see spots or things. And like people like to act in a very binary way, which doesn't work when things exist on a gradient.
Yeah, I do travel around to have like, I do public speaking and talks for like companies and studios, and just to teach people about game accessibility. And I remember after my very first talk, I said like, yeah, this I talked about The Last of Us, and we talked about high contrast mode, and I said like, yeah, this is for blind players. And then a lot of people came up to me afterwards and were just like, "Oh, but like blind people can't see." And I was just like, "Ah, yeah, I forgot that like the limitation of the knowledge in like the general population, which is sort of why I also do the TikTok things and I do all of that, is just to educate, because the general knowledge, especially for young people, because they have often never been ill themselves, they just don't know, which is, I don't think their fault of their own. It's just society don't talking about it. So for them, it can be a bit hard to understand the need for accessibility and why it is important.
And I think it's really weird as well. And it's me getting a bit wax lyrical now, but like, I went to a school that like supported disabled pupils, but like that was segregated. It was separate. So like, kids in like mainstream education were not, I'm gonna say exposed. That's probably not the best term to use when you're talking about schools and children. But like, they had no interaction with disabled people. So like,
Yeah.
as far as they were concerned, they didn't exist. So unless you
Yeah.
see someone in the street, and like that's where those barriers begin to form at that age.
Yeah. And also it turns out like I remember I was at a party once, and so um just to like say to the audience though, I struggle with a lot of different things, but the most like prominent thing I have is cerebral palsy and arthritis. And cerebral palsy is a small little brain damage you get the first year of your life. I got it because I had lack of oxygen while being born, and I have it quite mild. So you can't, as I said, you can't look at me and say that I have it because it's so mild. That does not mean that it doesn't affect me. And I remember being at a party, and it was like we were in a room or a house that wasn't completely done furnished. So in the living room, it was quite loud due to that, because it was like a lot of people sitting there and talking, and it just gets busy. So the host said that if somebody needs quiet, because he knew that there were some people there with ADHD, he said if somebody needs quiet, you can go into the other room, because they have a lot more furniture in there, and like a rug and stuff like that that lowers the sound. And then somebody like that was at the party said out loud, really loud, "Why should we need that? It's not like we're brain damaged." And that
Ooh.
was like 2 seconds after I told one of like the hostess girlfriend that I was born with a brain damage. And the look at her face, like I just laughed, because like I like to believe that things aren't done by malice, it's just ignorance. And it just like again just struck me how little knowledge we have. And to be honest, I most likely have done some blunders myself before, like starting more in the accessibility community and talking to more people, because now so many people I talk to is it just normalized it so much. It's like sometimes I forget that people just don't take medication every single day. Like that is not part of their routine. Or like I talked to my fiance and I said like, yeah, you know when you have this kind of pain, and he looked at me and he was just like, no, because I never have pain. And I was just like, oh yeah, that is what normal people feel like. So yeah, it is. I take it like water on a duck's back. I just laugh of it. And I look at it as a good opportunity for me to do more work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. And as you say, I think
Yeah.
malice and intention are really important. And, you know when someone is being, like, deliberately, shall we say, snide, right?
Yeah.
And I think the problem is that, like, just my gripe with that is that then the onus falls on you to then explain. And be like, oh, well,
Yeah.
by the way. And, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just grumpy at my old age, but like my like
No, you're British. It's part of it.
my desire to do that is just greatly diminished after having done it so many times. I know that's like
Yeah.
that's not helpful to the
No,
cause.
no. I think it's part of like if we are advocate for our own illnesses and stuff, we also should be allowed to take time off. It shouldn't be on us to educate people. We can take that if we want to, but it shouldn't be on us. Like technically it should be on parents and school to teach kids, but that already fails, so we have to do it. But like it shouldn't be on us technically.
Well,
So like I
parents
don't
teaching their kids things, never.
no. That is not allowed.
So I'm gonna interject as well because this kind of got announced recently, but the UK government announced the Ask Don't Assume campaign.
Oh God.
Yeah, which got big traction on Twitter. I chimed in with my 2 cents worth, and that relates to what I was just saying. Like that in of itself is super problematic.
Yeah. Like it was such a good when I read about it, like the background for it and where they had the inspiration from. It was such a good thing, but it's just again, it's that nothing about us without us. It's so the last decision was not made by the disabled community, and that is when it failed. So the original one was more about I can't remember the total perfect saying of this. I'm not British, I'm not English, so some words can go a bit away in my brain. But like it was more of like a don't assume that I need help. ask, like in the form of like, don't just move my wheelchair, don't just take my autonomy out of my hands. Like I'm an individual. Oh God, I can't say that word. And like I have my own autonomy and I can do my own things. I don't necessarily need help just because I'm disabled. If you want to help me, ask me first, or just assume I will ask if I need help. And I thought that was such a good thing. Like it was such a good start. And then it just ended up like asking everyone to be like a teacher to grown-ups. And I was just like, nah, you can go home and use Google. It's not that hard.
The thing that kind of blows my mind the most is that, like, because kids are kids, right? I don't mind a
Yeah, kids
kid
are kids.
being like,
No.
"Hey, look, it's Santa." Like, I get that, right? Okay, have I separately been approached by someone to work as a Santa in like a shopping center? Yes. You couldn't pay me enough, but I wouldn't. Like, I get it, right? I can see what they're getting at, right?
Yeah.
What bugs me is that the kid will say something like that, and then the parent slash guardian does nothing.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't intervene, doesn't say that's not okay, doesn't say like it's the fact, like, that bit. And if people can't do that with like very like malleable minds,
Yeah.
I can't see any way where a fully grown ass adult asking a disabled person, "How are you disabled, mate?" like is gonna
Why
go
are you
well.
sitting in that chair? Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, but I think it's also, if we're going to go really really big about it, I think it is a systematic problem, because like at least in Norway, if you go 3, 4 generations back, you were sent to institutions or like to live in a countryside if you didn't look or act the way you quote unquote should do of societal norms. So like society, like disabled people haven't been part of society for that long, which makes it so that a lot of people just haven't come across us. And it's, I love like the tweet. There is like this famous tweet that has gone around on the internet. It's really old now, but it's somebody says that they don't understand why disabled people need like this disabled parking, because why should like disabled people need to go to the store in the evening or like need to go to the store in the day? And then somebody answers, I'm disabled, not a werewolf, Susan. And I think that is like, I feel like sort of that just explains it. Like people just don't know. Like there is still so much just basic knowledge needs to be given to people that I don't think an ask, don't assume campaign could do anything good. Because I don't want to use, if I use my cane when I'm outside, I don't want to use 15 minutes more when I'm going from A to B to explain to random people why I use a cane. Like they can go home and Google, why do young people use a cane? It's not that hard. We have a phone in our pocket. You can literally Google it. It's not that hard.
I think you mentioned a really good point, especially about like the presence of disabled people, because it's my favorite sort of touchstone trope is that albinos are always the villain, like most disabled people are in media.
Yeah.
The Invisible Man, Da Vinci Code, to name a
Yeah.
couple. And there's I'm plugging another podcast, which is wild for a podcast, but History is Sexy. They did a one that I requested on the history of albinism, and
Yeah.
like one of the big things I think just generally for disabled people was during the kind of, and I'm using finger quotes for listeners' benefit, like the freak show kind of era in
Yeah.
time, was that at least disabled people were kind of touted as celebrities. They had like their own sort of stardom to then work around, and it was the kind of advent of the medical model that then flipped the onus back on them of like, oh, you're a problem we need to fix, not something that we should celebrate and then make part of society. And it's kind of a really interesting dynamic to think that like the medical model still really persists, even though it's the social system issues that are causing the problems, not me as a person.
Yeah. I have maybe a bit like controversial opinion on that one, Because for somebody who has chronic pain, so if any of the listeners wonder what we're talking about, because this is really nerdy stuff, but in the disability community, you have something called the disability model, and you have like 9 different way of looking at disability. The 2 most prevalent one are the medical model and the societal model, where the medical model sits like the sort of the reason for disability on the person itself, like it's the illness, it's the disability, it's the problem, you're the problem. But the social model puts it more on, it's a social problem, like houses don't have wheelchair access, or like you can't get on the tube, or you can't like access thing in society. And I feel like it's also wrong to only put it on the social model, because for a lot of us, even how much society is accessible, we are still disabled due to our bodies. We will forever be disabled. I think so. Because it was so fun. I had this conversation the other day, and I was just like, I want to make a tweet about it, but I don't dare. I don't dare to make a tweet about it. So I can talk about it here. Because this is like controversial in the disability community, but like I mean that we should look at both of them. Like the disability model is a tool, and a tool is just something you use to explain something. And I think it's scary if we think that the social model, because I see this is quite prevalent in the game accessibility community, to think that if you take away all barriers, people won't be disabled anymore. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think for a lot of people, there will be no problem for them anymore, and they might not look at them as disabled. But I think we should never forget the ones who cannot, will, however society change, we will always have a disability. And I think it's a bit different, important to have both.
Let's get real spicy. Let's get into controversial.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm disabled. I'm albino. It is part of my identity. It's who I am. It's my brand. Like my show is freaking called Blind Psyche, right? Like you know what I mean? Like I'm playing on it, right? I wouldn't change that. And I think there is a school of thought that is like, even if everything were fine and everything were accessible, I would still be blind and albino. I still wouldn't go sunbathe. Do you know what I mean? So let's get like real controversial and ask that really fun question that disabled people love to get asked of like, if you could be magically cured, would you remove your disability?
Oh, that's a good one. I would remove my pain. Pain is one thing that I struggle. Like there is a lot of things. I think pain is. I have this ongoing pain thing, and it feels sort of sometimes that something is crawling inside my body, and all I want to do is scratch it out. Like the pain is just so all encumbering in everything. And so I'm really good at managing my pain. I've said this on a lot of panels and podcasts that I am on, that I sometimes forget. If I stay inside, like, I'm a massive introvert. Like, I love people and I love talking to people, but like inside and being with myself and alone is my
That's how you
place to be.
recharge, right?
Yes, that's how I recharge.
The same category as I put myself in of an introvert that wears a very nice extrovert coat. I can go be
I'm
the
like
life of a party, a panel, but like I need to be in this chair on my own with a podcast on to recharge.
Yes, like I love talking to people. I love everything that has to do with like people, but I need my alone time. And what was I going to say then? We talked about pain.
Pain management.
Yeah, and like even though I'm just sitting inside, like so inside here I have everything really accessible for me. So we bought an apartment that needed renovating anyways, right? But like everything we did in the apartment was made to my measurement. So like the kitchen is at my measurement, like everything is in my measurement. So everything is so nice for me and my body. So I sort of forget that I am disabled, sort of, before I go outside. So I fit into that social model kind of things. But then I have bad periods with my pain and like my joint, and I get stiff because my cerebral palsy just doesn't want to make my muscles do what they want. And the pain I get those days, that like ongoing, persistent pain, no matter what medicine you take, no matter what you do, you're in pain. And you cannot, like, you want to crawl out of your skin. That I want to take away. Because, like, all the other things that, like, make me maybe like quirky or what you want to call it, I don't, that I like don't care about. Like, I'm okay that I play games with my feet. I'm okay. Like, it's part of my identity now, and it has learned me a lot and stuff. But the pain, nah, I could do without that one.
And I think, you know, that's the point I was trying to make, is that like even with your controversial quote unquote thing, is that like I wouldn't want to not be who I am. Like, I'm quite happy with being who I am, and that is a disabled person. I don't
Yeah.
want to magic that away. Like, you know, like, okay, is it a pain when I'm trying to stop a bus? Occasionally, but like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not the end of the world. Do you know what I mean?
When you try and stop a bus, it sounds like you just like go in front of a bus and go hands out, stop.
On
But I understood what you meant. I was just like, my mind then went to like you just going out to a traffic, stopping buses with your bare hands.
honestly, trying to stop buses in the UK is not far from that, to be honest.
No.
So, especially in London, don't even try and stop a bus in London.
No. Oof. Oof. Oof.
Anywho, so I'll take we're in the controversial mesh. Let's keep going. My favorite hot take. Let's talk about approachability versus accessibility, difficulty
Yes.
settings. Let's get into it.
Yes.
And my hot take is, and I've tweeted this, I think it's a good tweet. If difficulty settings were purely for accessibility, they would only ever make games easier. Because no disabled person that ever has gone, please make my life harder for me. We're already playing on hard mode.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to some degree though, because like I can see the other way though, because like when you have a lot of difficulties in life, you might want to have difficulties in game that you actually can master.
Well,
So
my point being, though, is that difficulty settings are predominantly approachability. They're not an out accessibility setting.
So I disagree with that as well. Like for me and for me they are about accessibility, but they can be both. I am the one who goes in both camps. So 100% they are approachability as well. Like we have easy mode for like kids. Like that was I think that was the reason why they added on Cuphead's easy mode, even though they did it in a really, really bad way because you couldn't finish the game in easy mode. But like they added that for people to sort of learn to deal with the system, and then it was meant for you to go back and then do normal mode, so sort of you got an easier start of the game. So 100% it is approachability as well. But for I have friends who have ADHD, and we talked about this, and for them that is accessibility. Easy mode for them is accessibility because they cannot always, for them though, and this doesn't need to be everybody with ADHD, can't regulate their emotions that good all the time. So they can be so frustrated with a game that like if it doesn't have easy mode, it's not playable for them because they like technically they can't control their emotion that gets like unregulated. So for them it is accessibility. So it is both, but it is also a lot to do with approachability. I think I think I really, really like that conversation. And I haven't thought about it. I think I saw Steve Saylor talk about it. I saw his YouTube about it for the first time. And I think it was quite cool though, because it is easy because accessibility is such a big word and it's such a big thing that it absolutely can mean approachability as well. And starting to like have those separated, I think that is the way to go.
I mean,
like let's
do not get me wrong. In the Venn diagram of approachability and accessibility, difficulty overlaps. Right, I'm 100% not saying that. My argument is that it leans more towards approachability, and my reasoning for that is, and you essentially said this yourself. With it matters about the game, right?
Yeah,
because
of
like
course.
my go to is like if a game requires me to parry perfectly, just me taking less damage on easy is not allowing me to get better at the game. Give me an extended parry window, give me a bigger queue, you know, like that will allow me to then actually get good at the game and experience it the same way everyone else is. And that's the kind of angle I sort of say where like, just play on easy. the opposite of get good
Yeah,
is not
yeah.
going to help me get like
No,
play
it's
the game.
like easy mode will never be end all be all of accessibility. Easy mode is just like a easy way of like making it better for some people, and it's a really limited way, actually. But yeah, it is really a limited way. But it is. I think it's needed as long as the developer wants it there. I have been in enough fights with Elden Ring bros to knowing that I to be honest, like for me, accessibility. A lot of people say like, yeah, accessibility is to lower barriers, and I 100% agree with that one. But I also think it's important to flip the coin and say that accessibility is a way for developers to uh, show more people the vision they had for the game. And so for that, you have your vision, say you have like 4 pillars. If one of those pillars of your game is this is going to be difficult, then don't add easy mode, because then you don't like yes you can if you want to, but like if or I'm not going to say, but if the pillars for you that you don't want to remove at all is difficulty, then don't add it. Like there is a plethora of other things you can do, like vision accessibility, motor accessibility, like 100 different other things you can then do. Like let's stop harping on that everything need easy mode, because the developers don't want that. And in the end, we need to come to like a middle section of a bridge of what we want as end users and what the makers of the games want.
And I think I don't know if you've seen, but Game Maker's Toolkit YouTube channel. It's like those like game dev
No, I
stuff.
haven't.
But they have a whole mini series on accessibility, and it
Yeah,
touches
yeah,
on that.
yeah. They go on. Yeah, yeah. I've seen that one. They have a really, really good about subtitles.
Yes, and like that,
Yes.
one of the videos he actually talks about difficulty, and he uses the example of Darkest Dungeon and one of my favorite games, Celeste, and it's like both of those games are meant to be difficult. They're meant to be hard. So the the assist mode or the accessibility options in terms of difficulty only are in a couple of menus deep. Well, they're there, and there's just kind of this like this isn't my artistic intent. I have friends who will I'll be polite with my language, but who are like sod your artistic intent. Everyone should be able to play every game. And like it's difficult to meander between the whole thing, right? But I think
Yeah.
as long as the option is there, like Celeste is like the game is meant to be hard, but you use these if it helps you get better to take it on, right?
Yeah. I think, and I think in the form of Celeste, I think if we see my example of like the pillars of values, I think in Celeste, for the developers, without talking above them, because this might not be true, but just my guess for it, is that their want to let people know this wonderful story is bigger than the want of making a hard game. So they rather want people to actually play the game, but with a system or other things that can make it so they make it easier. Or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Dark Souls don't want to do that. They have come out and said, like, I'm not going to defend Dark Souls because, oh my God, get a grip with accessibility. Like, oh my God, I'm not going to defend it, but I want to defend the right to like, okay, this is not what you want as developers. But that means that I'm going to be oh so harder to you for not adding anything else. Because like, fine, you don't want easy mode, fine. But those games don't have, or they have some, but nearly nothing else either. So it's just like, well, then I'm going to harp on about everything else.
That's exactly what I mean. Okay, don't give me easy mode in Elden Ring, but give me the ability to increase parry percentage.
Yeah.
And dodge windows. Give me that. Yeah. That's accessible. I can then get better at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like my fiance is sitting as we talk, playing some Lords of Fall. I think it's the newest. Yeah. And I when he had a break, I went into the settings to just see. And I was still like impressed the fact that you don't have HUD sizing in those games, because like the HUD is so small and it's all on the edge of the screen. So like if you get any problem with your vision and or like focus or information through your eyes problems, those get hard to play because you can move them.
Let me tell you, like it's one of my big bugbears I'm about to dunk on a series that people like, and sorry, not sorry, but like one of my pet peeves with Borderlands is that like the HUD is really inaccessible.
Yeah.
You can't actually rescale it. I think up until like the later versions, I think 3+ you can. But like my solution for playing the first 1 and 2 was just to play it in a lower resolution. I shouldn't have to do
Oh
that.
yeah.
Like I shouldn't have to
Yeah.
rescale the game and like make my PC create smoke just to be able to play it. Like
No.
you
No.
know,
And like, yeah.
I also played a game recently, and it's a game that I like, Endless Dungeon. I love that, and I love its predecessor, Dungeon of the Endless. But like the UI setting is 100, and you can only decrease it for like the user interface. And I'm like, because I saw it and went like, oh, this is great. I'll knock it up to like 150. That'll be great. Like you can say in Deep Rock Galactic, but it only goes down. The text is tiny. Why is anyone going?
We're
Do
not
you know what?
accessible. We're not accessible. We're anti-accessible. You're not only going to make it harder for you.
This, you know what? These images of your characters and really important information like health and cooldowns. You might think this is too big.
Yeah.
Let's shrink it.
Oh God.
Like
Oh, that's
imagine.
funny though. I know. I like. Oh, I laugh of this. It's just like, oh my God. Oh. But the thing is that, and the fact is that I think it's ignorance. I never think those things are malice, unless like somebody has explicitly told that they don't like disabled people. There are some of those in the world, but like, because when I do a lot of talks and panels and Q&As, like studios contact me and then I talk to them, like I consult them in things, and I tell so many quote unquote basic things, and they go like, oh my god, that was what we were supposed to do every single time, which I don't mean that in any wrong way. I mean that in, again, the knowledge is so low. And I think this is quite normal though, because I believe we all humans go through life like sort of horses with blinders on, like those who do the races.
Mm-hmm.
And like we see the world in our given way, like with the glasses of our experience. And we do not or rarely have the ability to take away those blinders. They are really, really hard to take away. So for somebody to make something like that, they just like, it just doesn't cross their mind. And it's not due to anything other than that is just not how us humans are. Like thinking about something that has never been invented is nearly impossible for us humans. So if they don't have the knowledge, they will just not think about it. So yeah.
There's a Nick Cave quote, a singer from Australia. I don't know if you're familiar, and I'm gonna butcher it, but like it's kind of the point it's making is that assurance is the enemy of invention. Like it's like being absolutely sure that you're right is damaging.
Yeah.
You should always be curious.
Yeah.
You should always want to know and like want to learn more and want to consider more people. And I think you see that a lot in the games industry where like they want to make a game accessible, but they don't know how. They don't have access to the people, and they don't have the time.
Yeah. I actually met one. I was at like a networking thingamajiggy, and I met a developer from the States who asked me like, okay, but does anybody ever get angry when you're talking to companies? Like, do they feel like you're sort of like pressuring them into doing something they don't want to? And that was actually really fun that he asked me that, because that I've never crossed my mind, because I've never had anybody being like, every time I'm there, maybe because like all of the people joining in, like I often have like Zoom meetings, so there's like a Q&A so everybody can log on, and then we have like a set questions concerning something they're working with, and then we have a Q&A so they can just ask away. And so the people who don't want to don't log on to those anyways. So of course this is like a biased set of group, but always people have been happy. They've been like, oh yeah, this is cool. Oh yeah, this is fun. Oh yeah, this is like, they are just curious. And I think that is really, really nice. Because most of them are just curious to learn more, and they are more like, oh, this is cool. Now I can try this my next game, or this was a good idea, or like they've never thought about it before. And it is fun. I think most developers, like 99, 95, 99% of them just want to learn more. They have such a love for their art that when they see other, because we accessibility advocates have a lot of love for gaming. Like all of us really love gaming, which is why we're so vocal about it. And
I mean, not to be pedantic, but gaming is literally my life. Like,
yeah, yeah.
I'm doing a PhD in it. Like, that's not a joke. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I'm working it. I'm reading it. I like everything. I have this whole apartment just so I could have this room to make my game stuff. Like, it's everything. And and they see that. I think they feel that also. And of course, I think it is important whenever I do reviews and stuff, I sort of like, I tell them like, okay, this isn't accessible, but then also tell them why should you make it accessible, or how could you make it accessible? Because I think it is important to sort of build bridges. We have enough, sadly, in the gaming world who screams toxic things and vile.
Elden Ring Bros.
So yeah, Elden Bros. Yeah. So yeah.
So I mean, we kind of went off the deep end with this, and I love it.
Yeah.
To try and regain some semblance of structure. I am aware that this is a weird question to ask you as someone who like tentatively brands himself as an accessibility consultant. And you've touched on a little bit about like, your sort of disability background and sort of that growing up, but when/how did you realize that you wanted to be involved in the accessibility gaming space? Like, if someone were like, at home thinking, how could I do this? What would you say?
Oh, okay. So let's start with my story first, then, and then we can talk about like how to do it yourself. So I started doing Twitch because I was lonely. So I've struggled with PTSD for quite a lot of years now due to medical trauma. It's not uncommon for people who are chronically ill. We have gone through a lot of gaslighting, a lot of horrible mistreating from hospital staff and medical people that are supposed to take care of you. Sometimes really does the opposite. And I had some of experience like that was really horrible. And I sort of, everybody around me were a bit like, yeah, but like you have to understand they're stressed, or you have to like, at least they were trying to help you, and said like all of these things that made me think like, oh, I shouldn't talk about it. So I pressed it down.
I like to brand those people as system apologists.
Yeah. And I think I don't think they did it by purpose. I think they thought they helped me by like, just get over it, sort of like deal. But like
that age-old mental health, remedy. Just get over it.
Just get over it. Yeah, like, so I also don't think that they saw it as horrible as I did, because it didn't happen to them, so they couldn't like understand why it was so horrible. And then I pushed it down, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and think like, oh, I don't want to wake up anymore. And then you call a psychologist and go like, hey, I need to talk to you, and I need to talk to you now. So I started going into therapy. And then
go therapy, like, just gonna fist pump that.
Go therapy. And then I started to like, I'm really lonely, because for the lot, like I had just like cocooned myself. Like, okay, I'm an introvert, but like I've started to just like cocoon myself just to be able to control every single part of my life so I don't get triggered, which is typical. And then, but I've always wanted to start streaming. So my wonderful now fiance bought me Fallout 4 and was just like, "Here, I'm going to go out jamming with my friends. When I'm away, you're going to start streaming. Like, no discussion, do it." So I started streaming, and then I'd streamed for 4 years, and I got better. I started to talk about my mental health, but like mental health and accessibility don't like technically cross each other that much. So started being open about it.
The irony being that mental health is covered under disability legislation, at least in the UK.
Yeah. Yep. It is that, but like often we forget like cognitive and mental accessibility. We often forget that. So I never thought about it that way. So I was quite open with my community with like the process I went through, and like I started being more and more open. And then in the end, I just like, okay, everybody, I have PTSD. It's just who I am. Like it's just what I am, and there's nothing wrong about it. And I just started talking about that. But then one day I was streaming and my hands really, really hurt, and I started crying, and everybody assumed it was due to mental health. And I was just like, no, it's actually because my joints are hurting. And like, it's just because it so hurts me so much to hold the controller and I don't know what to do. And I'm so frustrated because like, this is what I love, but I love it, but I can't do it. And then chat started like, it was like quiet for so long. And then it starts popping into chat like, oh my God, me too. I have never met somebody else who felt that. I didn't know I wasn't the only one. And like, I kid you not, the amount of like support I got for starting talking about my then though more physical problems just overwhelmed me.
Mm-hmm.
And some months later, I think this is about 2-3 years ago, some months later, it was Disability Pride Month. And I just like wrote out that like, hey everyone, I just want to let everybody know that I'm a disabled creator, and now I'm proud of it. And you should work with us. Like it's important to give us money because you can't say you're for us without like making us be part of the system. And that tweet went viral for me for that time because I was quite small.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I started to understand that, hey, this is something we should talk about. Because every time I open my mouth, a bunch of other people go, yes, me too. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I understand this. Oh my God, I don't feel lonely. And that like hit me because like I was the one who struggled with loneliness. That was why I started streaming. But all of this, so streaming has helped me, but all of this suddenly I could give back by just talking about what I knew. So I started reading up on it. And of course I had watched YouTubers and streamers for years who was disabled, have learned a lot because like that was just part of what I enjoyed watching. But all of a sudden I said like, I can also talk about this. My experience is unique. Everybody's experience is unique in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Because like there isn't a one size fit all in the disability community. So I can talk about my experience and that is as valid as somebody else's experience, and they can both exist in the same time. There isn't like 1-2 lines under the answer, this is the correct thing. It is we need a lot of voices. So I just started talking about it more and more, and then now I am obsessed with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that is how I got into it. Sub story turning out being good story. I'm doing good today. I can never be. My PTSD doesn't go away. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is sadly part of who I am, but I live a completely happy life with it.
I
I
mean,
am like the one who's learned to deal with it.
I mean, like, yeah, like I'm with you 100%. Like again, like just mental health is like the other side of my PhD, and like the fact that
Yeah.
people just think of it as like it's an on or off. You either have it or you don't, and it's like no,
Yeah.
it's something you learn to manage. You live with it.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yes.
something that never goes away. If you've
Nope.
had like depression, you might like not be currently depressed, but it's always rummaging around in there.
Yeah, I was at the hospital yesterday because I needed to do like a pre-scan for operation I'm going to do to take away a kidney stone. I was there for 3 hours, and like at the end of my appointment, I looked at the nurse and you have like 20 minutes before I'm completely panicking. Like we need to get rolling. And she was just like, yep, we're going to do it. She did not want me to have a panic attack. She was just like, you can do it. There's just one stop again. You just have one doctor you need to talk to again. And after that, you can run outside, but don't run because then you fall. And then I have a problem. So just walk really confident and quick, and then you can get out of here.
Mm-hmm. So
I need to deal with it, but like my life day to day is good.
mm-hmm.
I have what I would call a good life, and I'm happy, which is something it's such a
wait,
so a lot of
can you
people.
hear that? It's the sound of able people falling over at a disabled person saying they live a good
I
life.
know. And like and I think so many people think mental health, having a mental illness, is like 100% all the time negativity. And I think also that is why a lot of people don't get help before it's too late, or like close to like how I was. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was really, really ill when I first got help. because I thought being mentally ill meant that you have 100% of the time it was shit. But that isn't how it is. That isn't how it is having a mental illness. It's ups and downs. It's just a lot of downtime.
It's the stigma, you know. People think
Yeah.
it again. Like it's funny that we're talking about this, like this weird overlap between the two. But it's like I'm not depressed enough. I'm not experiencing enough PTSD. Is equivocal to, oh, I'm not as disabled as this person. I'm not disabled enough. And like because of that stigma to like try and talk about it, it's so hard to do so.
Or these people who don't use accessibility tools like cane or a share in the shower or a wheelchair because they're just like, but I'm not that disabled. And it's just like there isn't a magical line of how disabled you need to be to need aids, like a mobility aid or a shower aid or a game aid or a game accessibility. Everybody can use it. Like society is so weird because I remember I was at a hospital when I was 26 to check out my cerebral palsy. Again, long story, really short. My parents got told after 2 years of doing physical therapy that I was healthy. You can't be healthy from a brain injury like that. Like you will always have problems. And my parents were just like, okay. And the doctors were just like, don't tell her about it. And my parents were, okay. And they didn't tell me until I was like 15 years old. So I grew up thinking I was not disabled. You can imagine that's not fun when your body is just fucked up, but you don't look disabled. So you just think you're lazy and horrible and not good enough and all that jazz. Again, not blaming my parents.
Equivocal to that is that, like, despite the fact that my mother is a person with albinism, doctors did not medically confirm I was an albino until I was 5. I popped out the womb and my mother was like, oh, he's an albino. I was like, no, he's just pale and blonde.
Yeah, nah, we'll see. Maybe he grows out of it.
Like, what? Like, I was just gonna, like, wake up one day, like, 6 and just not be albino anymore. Like,
yeah, you're just like, look, I have black hair now.
Like,
go like,
what? Like,
yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, no, like, yeah. So I remember I was 26 years old. I was going to my first ever proper evaluation of my cerebral palsy at a hospital on the other side of the country. Had spent all night on a train to get down there.
Oof.
I was really, really, really tired, and I was so, because like when you have cerebral palsy, of course it gives me physical problems, like I shake, my body shakes, or I have tremors, and I have like pain and all that jazz. But it also does that I don't deal good with too many sensory inputs. So getting to a hospital, I have my PTSD and then like all the hospital smells, and I was afraid of that. Like I needed to have my mom with me. I was 26 years old and she needed to sleep at my room because I was so scared of the possibility you can lock the doors. And that is normal in hospitals, a lot of hospitals. And it wasn't because they needed anything, but it was just the fact that I was so afraid for a doctor or nurse to come into my room in the night. So I needed my mom with me. I've been there later on and it's gone completely fine. Like they were the most lovely people. And then like I came there and I wanted to take a shower and I'd started to cry when I talked to one of the nurses. She was really lovely. And she said like, oh, I can see you're like hunching over. You tired? I set a chair for you in the shower and I put some towels on it so it can be like comfortable for you to sit because they can be a bit cold. And she was just like, yeah, just sit down there and you can just shower there. And then I sat showering for the first time. And I was just like, am I allowed to do this? And I came out and I again started to cry because I was just like, why haven't anybody told me that I can just sit in the shower? Like nothing stops you from just using that. And for me, but due to all my disabilities, shower is a thing I have planned in my calendar. I can't do the shower every single day, no matter if anybody thinks that's icky good for you. I can't. It's a physical and mentally load for me to do. So I have to section it off in my calendar of things I need to do. It's like a event for me, sort of. because it takes so much energy.
It's
And I was
it's
just
a
like,
task that requires a certain number of spoons. So yeah, like it's.
yes, yeah. And for me then to just realize that when I have a bad day, because before 100% there were days that I just couldn't shower and then I didn't get to do it because I was too ill. And then why just have a shower, like a seat in the in your shower. So I have like a fold up IKEA chair. I like a really like basic, really really cheap IKEA chair because I don't. Normally those bathroom chairs are quite sturdy, but since I don't have any problems with balance and stuff, there that isn't the reason why I use it. Like a lot of people who are paralyzed use it for. I don't need that. It's just for energy conserving. So for me, I could just use whatever. So I bought like a foldable chair. I have it on the side of my shower, and if I ever need it one day, just take it out and I sit in the shower, and it's so wonderful to learn that you're allowed to do it. It's not lazy. It's not anything. It's just
I
to
mean,
help
listen,
you.
I would encourage listeners to give a sit and shower a go. You might
Yeah,
like it. Why not?
yeah. Why not?
You know, you're not missing out.
No.
Like, do you know what I mean? I think so. This is, and I apologize. I like to say I flirt with all my guests, but like, I'm looking at this through like my experience and where I am in like my journey. But like, how do you feel being where you are in the space? Because I think it'd be easy for people like me, or maybe others who want to get into the space, to look at you and go, "You're like the finished article. You are doing the thing in the space. You have a very good social presence. Like you get engagements. Companies get you to speak to them and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, that rolls a bit back to what you said about like how do you start doing it. And the first and foremost, like don't feel you have to do anything and disclose anything. I think that is really important. You don't need to disclose your own medical history. I do it because I want to normalize it. That is a conversation I have had with myself in my own head. And me and myself and I came to the conclusion of I don't care that people know my medical history. And because that can be used against you, and I'm okay with that because I'm 31 years old and I don't care anymore. And the thing is just that you should have like that conversation. What are you comfortable with?
Yeah.
You can still be an accessibility advocate without ever having to tell anyone if you're disabled or not. Because accessibility is not just like, of course it is made for us who are disabled, but it's to make the world easier for everyone. And you can still talk about it. You can still like, even though you not necessarily want to tell why. Of course, you can always get those questions and you can just don't answer them. You don't need to, but just start talking about it. It's an awareness thing. So like if you have a Twitter account, you can tweet about it. If you have a YouTube, you can talk about it. You can just like put it in there, because what you will slowly and startly really quick find out is that if you say something like, oh yeah, I like, if you're playing a game and just say, oh yeah, I like all my games to be at 120%, like my text size, you will always have somebody say, oh, me too. Oh yeah, I know that feel. And then you start like getting your own community, and you start like finding others like you, which is sort of what I did as well. Like I started by just saying, now it's every time I stream, every time I do something, it is about accessibility because it's started to be my jam. But it didn't start like that. It started with just like, and sometimes I just had a tweet about it. Sometimes I just said some word about it. Sometimes I just did this and that. And I think that is how you do it. And it's also important. I saw this actually, a friend of mine in America under the big like Black Lives Matter, George Floyd thing that happened. I have a friend of mine who were really like outspoken about it, and like learned me a lot on Facebook. And he had decided like this is what I'm going to teach people about. But then he had a really, really good Facebook post where he said, like, you don't always need to be in the front and fight your cause. sometimes you can go back and just breathe. But then you need to have people around you that are willing to like go around you and like have a ring around you to let you breathe. So if you don't want to be the one on forefront to fight, maybe if you see somebody saying something that is inaccessible, or like somebody that like get a lot of negative attention due to the disability, maybe you can for once be the one bringing something positive. When they maybe need a breather, maybe you can be the one who goes forward and say like, no, accessibility is cool, or no, this is actually just for cognitive disability. This isn't, or if this isn't made for you, no, if you don't understand how this is made, maybe it's just not made for you. You don't need to be the forefront fighter. You can also just support others who are. So yeah.
I think that's a tremendously good sentiment. To allow me to move on to some of my quicker fire, more fun, whimsical questions. I do feel like I could speak to you all day. I feel like we could do this.
Yeah, I'm such a talker. God damn it.
We could shoot the shit for a long time, I think. But I want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah.
So my first sort of like fun question is: if you had access to unlimited resources, time, people, what one big blue sky idea you would like to do?
Ooh, I would just sit inside making YouTubes and TikToks. I do what I really, really want to do right now. Or no, I would move to Japan and do just the same as I do, just from Japan.
Okay, I mean that's I respect the simplicity of that answer.
Yeah, because like my big goal right now is to try and make this my full time. It's my part-time job, and I want to make it my full-time job.
And in the context of the question, you could hire like editors and people to do filming and stuff for you. Like you just have to turn up and be a legend.
Yeah, be a star.
Okay, all right, I love it. Is there anyone who you would like to sort of shine the spotlight on and give some recognition to, who has maybe inspired or encouraged you along the way?
I've learned a lot from you. They do the bit promo there. I learned a lot from you. I have learned a lot about Laura K. Buss on YouTube and stuff, because she also talks about cognitive accessibility, which is not talked about at all, almost.
And
Laura K.
It's funny just to like, because again, like I have a lot of friends like with ADHD, so like I talk to them a lot about games and stuff, and I feel like because I'm just talking to them about their gameplay experience, like I kind of almost forget that like what they're talking about is your falls under cognitive accessibility. Like you can almost like not see the wood from the trees. You chat on accessibility so much, you kind of forget that other people don't talk about it.
Yep. And then we have Deaf Gamers TV, which is Chris. Because Chris does a lot of things in ASL, so American Sign Language, on his Twitch channel, which is so cool. If you are somebody who normally use vocal language, if you can call it that, not sign language, just like go to some of his content and learn a bit about it, because like the deaf community are they are a community. Like that is a community. So that's a lot to learn from. And he speaks so well about his experience. So yeah, those are two people on top of my mind I want to shout out.
Can you just name them both again for me?
Laura K. Buss and Deaf Gamers TV.
Lovely stuff. That's like, I mean, I know it's my show and my podcast, but like, that's my favorite question that I always ask people, because I just love hearing people mention people that like they think are awesome. That's like my favorite bit.
Yes.
Okay, so let's have a bit of fun. We've been doing a lot of serious chatter.
Laura serious.
Wind it down. Let's have a little fun. Yeah, it's an evening. Let's have a good time. So you are going to a biodome of your choice. You can disclose where that is if you would like to. For some rest and relaxation, you'll have all the equipment, energy, access to supply that you need. And what you're taking with you is one album, one film/TV, disc, box set, whatever, one book, and one game. What are you taking with you, and why?
Okay, so I don't listen that much to music. I'm not a music person. When I
So
listen to
I'll be fair. You can take like a collection of anything if it's sold as a
okay,
collection, like
okay, no,
audiobooks as well if you want to listen
can
to
I
it.
take a Spotify playlist? Because what
Why
I
not?
do is that my fiance loves music, so he makes Spotify music lists to me, and he made a Spotify music at 3:14 a.m. once, and that is the music I listen to. I go into Spotify and I put on that that album or that Spotify list because that is all he knows I love. So that's what I do.
So
And a
the
book.
3 a.m. Spotify playlist, love it.
Yes, yes. Film, it has to be. I'm not a film person, so it has to
You can
be
have a TV show box set.
but Alien, the original
Oh,
Alien. I really love that. I think movies from the 70s are really, really good because they portray humans as humans with like emotions compared to the Hollywood emotions we have now. So I really, really enjoy that. A book. Ooh, I don't know. Like because I was one of those who really really loved Harry Potter, and then J.K. Rowling ended up being a big douchebag. So now she ruined my like really really big one love of books. So I don't know. I am still in like the figuring out what other kinds of books I like.
mm.
So, but I have a really good book I read this summer though, which
Oh, I love a
is
good
this one.
recommendation. Oh,
Yeah,
so
the gamer's brain, the
which is
nerding book.
by Dr. Celia Hoden, I believe.
Yes, yes, and this one was really really good. I used it. I use it a lot in my like when I need to reference a good UX design and accessibility. I use this one, so maybe this one.
For those that
Add
don't
this
know,
one.
Dr. Celia Hoden is a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
famous for her work on UX, UI, particularly relating to Fortnite, which is why my go-to
Yeah,
joke is, you know why Fortnite's so good? Is because they used a psychologist in the design. Please
yeah,
hire me.
then it's true, and it's true.
Like
Yeah, and the
I'm not a
last
fan
thing.
of Fortnite, but that UI is really good.
Yep, yep. She is, you know what she's talking about. Oh my god, yes. And the last thing was what was the last
So,
thing you said?
what game are you taking?
Oh, I'm taking Tomba. Tomba is my favorite game ever. It's from on the PS1. Nobody has played it. Nobody's heard about it, but it's my favorite game. It's better than Zelda. So,
Whoa, whoa!
yeah.
Controversial
I know.
shouts to the end.
I know. Yeah. Oof. Oof. Oof.
How do you spell that? Because I feel like I've heard of it, but I don't know if that's just my brain.
I have dyslexia, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Tomb.
Oh,
Ah,
yeah,
I
Tomba,
yeah.
the guy with the
The
pink
red
hair.
the guy with the pink hair. A lot of people have actually played the demo because it came on like the one of the first PS1 discs. The one that you got the demo disc you could get in the PS1 magazine.
Hmm.
It came on one of those. So
So
that a lot of people have played it as
the reason
a
I
demo.
know of that game is because a friend of mine, Marco, aka Solid Snake, who's been on the podcast by the
Yeah.
way, check him out, season 1, has actually done like a playthrough of that on stream, and like
Ah, yeah.
that's one of those games that I watched and went, what the actual heck is going on?
It's such a bloody good game.
It
It's such a good game.
it borders on nonsense from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's just the questing is just brilliant. I've never, after that game, found a game that is so good with their quests on how, like, you get a quest and you really, really need to think about how to figure it out. And, like, it's a puzzle. Every quest is sort of a puzzle. It's so good.
You mean it's not just please go and get me 10 apples from the orchard?
Nope. 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 And if there is one of those are like the last quest you do, but you get them in the start because you need to collect them through the whole game. So it's just brilliantly made.
So just to reiterate, we would go for Alien as your film,
Yeah.
your 3 a.m. playlist for your music.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really sure on a book. You'd maybe take the gamer's brain just because it's a reference
Yeah.
material. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really good. So yeah.
And then your video game Tomba.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good set list. Can I ask what biodome you would choose to visit?
What is a biodome though?
So
Like
because people always go like a desert island, right? But I'm not gonna go to a desert island. I don't want any sun
oh
and sand.
yeah. No, Japan. I'm
Just
learning
Japan.
Japan.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair.
Japan. I'm learning Japan. The Japanese with my fiance. We're going to go there for my honeymoon, our honeymoon, and like, I don't know. It seems fitting now that I'm learning the language, and just like have a dome around Japan. And I feel like there is where you can live for like at least 20 years and have something to do every day. So
Oh, I mean, Japan is like on my bucket list of places to visit.
oh, I've
Like,
been there once before and it's so lovely. And it's really, they have like accessibility. They have upped the game when it comes to after the Olympics. Their games aren't accessible yet, though,
I mean,
but like,
Nintendo coming out with
yeah.
their no third party controller BS. Like at the time of recording today, just
Yes.
literally give it a week. They'll amend it to excluding accessibility, right? Like they'll
Yeah,
have to.
we
They'll
hope
just have
so.
to. But
We
like,
hope so.
yeah, like listen, just
Yeah.
hire one of us so we can start making some
Yeah.
changes. That easy.
Just like Nintendo, I want a job. I do really cool jobs. You want to work with me. Maybe they don't want to work with me after they see like they tweet about their fact that they do that went viral. So
Listen,
I don't, maybe not. But
we have a working relationship. Get you in Nintendo Germany, get me in Nintendo UK. We'll branch out. I
yes,
think it'll all work. We can make it happen.
easy. We have a plan.
So my last question for you is: do you have any questions for me? I've been asked like how my PhD is going. Please don't ever ask a PhD student that.
No,
Um,
I worked on a research facility. I learned quick that that is a question you never ask.
I've been asked like the one album thing. I've also been asked like who would be a guest that I would like to have on. So, is there anything else that you would like to ask of me?
What game are you mostly looking forward to, or was the best for you now in 2023, since it is the last episode of the season?
Oh, that's a good question because I've played a lot of good games this year. What am I actually playing right now? So the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1's just come out, and I have no scruples, so I obviously bought it because if I could tell childhood me that I could play pretty much the entirety of Final Fantasy and the first three Metal Gear Solid games on a portable Nintendo console, I think I would have died. Honestly, and like this maybe recency bias if I'm being really honest, but a game that I played completely unexpectedly and fell in love with, Moonstone Island.
Oh yeah, yeah, I played that.
Like it's a sort of farming sim that has like creature capturing, but all the battles are done with cards, and like it's just a game that I fell in love with, dunked 70 hours into, finished pretty much all the quests, and just went, yeah, that was great. And I typically get overwhelmed by like farming games. Like there's too much to do, it's too hard to build from scratch, like which is why I've never played more than 2 hours of Stardew Valley at once.
That's a controversial take.
Honest, so it's a thing. I'll tell you when we go off air, but like there's a few games that like I have not played that people would be dismayed to learn I've not played.
Yeah. Well, we all have those.
But yeah, I think Moonstone Island would be my answer. Like unsung game of the year for me.
That is a really good one though.
Do you have a game of the year?
Yeah, a Dredge. I think I have a Dredge. Dredge was just, oh my god, that game. Like I have never been so glued to the screen. And I love horror games, but I'm not comfortable. I'm more of a let's player, like watching let's play for horror games. So Dredge, and then you have a really, really small indie game that is called Videoverse. So is anybody here grew up on the internet in 2003 to 2010, highly recommend you to play Videoverse. And then I'm really, really looking forward to play Mario Wonders because I haven't done that yet. And I'm going to play that on stream in my Peach cosplay. So that is going to be really, really fun.
Nice.
Yes. Nice.
All right, well, all it remains for me to do is say thank you for joining me. This has been a great chat. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
What a great way to round out another fantastic season.
Yes.
I'm hoping to be back next year. I'm going to try and produce some more episodes. YOLO. We'll
Of
see what
course.
happens. But yeah, no, this has been great. Thank you so much. So as I always say on this show, don't forget to like and review all other type of business. All the links that you need to keep in touch with my wonderful guest will be available wherever you found your episode. Where is the best place for people to reach you, should they desire it?
If you like streaming, I'm do both streaming on YouTube and Twitch at the same time. If you like to know more about accessibility, go to my TikTok or Instagram to have you have any questions. I make video on that. And if you just want to hear me hear shit post, we have Twitter.
And as I say, all those links will be attached. And as you always say on this show, on this channel, look after your mind, body, and soul. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.